Following my last Cubist painting, one of my subscribers asked, how do you paint a landscape painting in a cubistic approach? I thought about this challenge, and after looking into it, I didn't find very much content on YouTube. So I set out to create this instructional tutorial, an in-depth view of a landscape painting behind me in a cubistic approach. I really think you're going to like this. In my previous video, we learned about simultaneity, the Cubist process of seeing multiple views from different angles and combining them into one painting. This is quite easy to achieve in practice, since you're dealing with smaller objects, so moving around them or seeing each object from different angles is not an issue. But how would you go about executing the same task on the grand scale of a landscape? Seeing the landscape from multiple views is much more time-consuming and therefore challenging. Could this be one of the reasons why there are very few paintings that exist on the subject? Generally speaking, when you think of a Cubist painting, what comes to mind? Mostly still life paintings with ordinary objects and music instruments. Figures or portraits is the next type of subject, but virtually no landscapes come to mind. This is ironic, of course, because landscape paintings were present at the very beginning and were crucial in the naming of the Cubist movement. George Braque, considered by many to be the father of Cubism, had several of his paintings rejected by the Salon de Toulon. The art critic Louis Vasselet coined the term Cubism in 1909 after the famous painter Henri Matisse described Braque's paintings as entirely made up of little cubes. Look at some of these landscape paintings, so angular and rhythmic. So let's now set out to create our very own landscape painting. If you are a beginner, be prepared for this to be a difficult challenge. Here are a couple of suggestions I can offer. Number 1, instead of painting a new variation, why don't you try recreating a famous Cubist painting you admire? While this practice is not popular or encouraged anymore, following in the footsteps of a master artist and learning to recreate one of their paintings is a worthwhile endeavor that can yield much learning. Secondly, don't jump straight into the painting, but create several sketches with different approaches of the same subject. Your first attempt is rarely your best, and creating multiple versions will weed out the weaker compositions and a clear winner will emerge. I did several studies or drawings in preparation for this painting. Doing them in charcoal didn't cost me much, yet saved me much frustration battling the painting later on and feeling the pressure of wasting valuable paint materials. As they say, practice makes perfect, and you really must rehearse again and again in order to get good at something. Preparing for the drawing, not only did I take a photo of the landscape, I walked through it, noticing the change in elevation, imagery, and lighting. As I walked, new shapes and forms revealed themselves like waves in the ocean. Back at the studio, as I began reflecting and bringing to mind this journey through the landscape, I took mental snapshots. In the main view of the landscape, I did want some things to be recognizable and the focal point of the drawing. The barn, horses, some trees, and so on. I would still represent these from various angles, of course, but I want these objects to provide structure and anchor the painting. Otherwise, everything would be a blurry mess. When drawing a landscape realistically, the artist is thinking about space in terms of foreground, middle ground, and background, hoping to create a sense of depth through pictorial depth cues of size, placement, atmospheric, and linear perspective. In the cubistic approach, the artist is not concerned with these things, looking at the composition as a new reality. While still bearing some resemblance to what the landscape looks like, the artist is fragmenting three-dimensional space through the three components of simultaneity, geometricity, and passage. I already explained simultaneity, the ability to see multiple views at the same time. Geometricity refers to fragmenting the scene into geometric shapes and forms. Remember to use variety of sizes, variety of shapes, lines, values, and textures. Variety is your friend. Passage is the third and final process to a cubistic painting. Passage means not only fragmentation of shapes and forms, but the linking of foreground, middle ground, and background and interlocking them with each other. In my drawings, I try to imagine forms growing out of forms and shapes growing through other shapes. This is completely improvisational, of course. There is no way for you to envision at the very beginning what your finished drawing or painting will look like. This is precisely what I love about Cubism, the anticipation and excitement of arriving at a place you have never been to, full of twists and turns, a landscape that is foreign and mysterious, but yet quite exciting. Here are my 4 separate drawings that I made. What do you think? Which do you prefer? I am basing my painting mostly on number 4. For the painting, I'm using acrylic paints. Tracing your drawing does make it easier to begin. I chose to eyeball it instead. As usual, you would start off by doing a general outline in paint. Even staining your canvas is a great first step, but I chose to skip it. As you paint, make some areas dark at random, while leaving others lighter. Some shapes can be faded, blended, or smeared to create the effect of a gradient, a soft and gradual transition from one value to another. Here again, improvisation is important. The artist responds to the stimulus at hand, sometimes adding and other times subtracting. This performance is like a balancing act, where the artist is juggling shape, line, form, value, size, and weight. Avoid creating a predictable pattern or one that repeats continuously. Instead, alter the sequence or direction of your steps. Here, variety again is important. Equally important is contrast. Don't have multiple dark shapes or light shapes butting up next to each other. When contrast is low, engagement and interest declines. Opposites attract. Have dark next to light, smooth texture next to coarser one, big next to smaller ones, etc. Following my Cubist video on YouTube, one of my, oh my gosh. Following my video on YouTube, let's do it again. This one's for real. My YouTube video, oh my gosh, what the f is wrong with me? Come on, this is ridiculous. All right, here we go. How I would paint a landscape painting like this. No. A step-by-step direction. Oh my gosh. Come on. Seriously? How many of these takes do I have to take? Okay. I really think you're going to like this. Nah, it's terrible.